Hey guys, and welcome to the Garage Athlete Show. I know it has been a little while, but we are reunited. Dream Team, the originals, back again.
Reunited,
So
and
we
it
are
feels
on
so good.
episode 75. I didn't realize we'd managed to do 75 episodes
Bloody
or
hell.
74 episodes before this.
Oh, well.
But yeah, we're back again. I think for both myself and Dan, it's just been ridiculously busy the past however many months with kids going to school and nursery and just generally getting life back on track. But it's good to be back chatting with the main man, Mr. Dude.
Yeah, you too, man. Good to catch up with you. How you been?
I've been good. Busy, like training wise, have managed to continue training like 5 days a week throughout this whole like off season as it is. Had a solid 12 months of growing now.
Nice.
And about 6 weeks ago, we started a bit of a mini cut. So pulling off some of that body fat to see what's actually happened in this 12 months. Because I don't know when, for me, like during the off season, the first like 3 or 4 months was pretty easy. And then my body weight got up to over 80 kilos and I just got like sluggish, like the amount of food I was having to eat. And it just got really repetitive because obviously when you're dieting and stuff, like every week you're doing videos and seeing new lines and you're seeing like your hard work.
Yeah, there's also a lot faster, aren't there?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and this is what a lot of people don't understand about that process of building muscle. It takes time, and you've got to go to a place, especially when so like I've trained with weights now since I was 13 years old, so it's that 17 years. Like I can't do the same things as I could in the first like year or two of training and still see the same level of results. I now have to push my body weight like up. I have to push my body fat up to a point where I'm uncomfortable with it in order to see growth. But as we kind of like pulled things down, like, and this is where going up and down like several times and taking photos throughout that process, I can now look back at my weigh-ins from like a year ago when I was that same body weight and stick those two photos together and be able to go, oh yeah, I can see that I've added muscle here and here because the weight is the same, but body composition wise, I'm holding a lot less body fat, and you can see that you're kind of the physical changes. And it's one of those things where I know a lot of people are a little bit self-conscious about doing photos and videos and stuff like that, but it's a really, really good tool to be able to see the change when the goal is aesthetic at the end of the day. When the goal is I want to have more muscle, I want to look better, like having those visual things in order to be able to compare them at different body fat levels, not just when you're super lean. It's a really, really useful tool.
Yeah, it's a slow burner, and I think with strength training it's all right because you can kind of as you get bigger, you normally get stronger just from almost like a side effect of carrying extra size. But yeah, I can see it from a bodybuilding point of view. It can be a hard adjustment. Like you say, it's fun at first, but when you have to like to get gains, you really have to work hard for a long period of time, and it's not a huge amount of muscle. Well, you do gain muscle, obviously, but it's not insane amounts of muscle. We're talking, like a kilo of muscle would be phenomenal. So it's like it's a lot of hard work for, it's a good reward because I think a kilo of muscle in a natty physique can really completely change it, but you have to put in a lot of work to get there. I mean, if we're talking, people that just want to be healthy and in shape, you probably don't need to gain as much as you think to just sort of be happy with your body weight, because I think most of the time people are like, yes, it's nice to have the arms and the chest and all that kind of stuff, but I think they just want to see some kind of ab and feel comfortable. So you're probably better off starting off with a cut first and then building. But if you're sort of that younger guy training, I would absolutely say gain as much as you can in the earliest. Right, I'll be 2 seconds, mate.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, as you said, I completely agree. And it's one of those things where in the first, I'd say 1 to 5 years, you can probably get away with, especially if you've never really structured a building phase like properly. A lot of people are very, very good when they're kind of like dieting down. But when you're doing a properly structured building phase, you can build muscle and burn fat at the same time. It's much easier to strip the body fat off first, so you've got more space to kind of like be able to build. But I know I've got a couple of guys that I'm working with right now, and it's the first time they've ever been lean. So they don't want to let go of all that leanness while they're kind of going into a building phase. So we're doing a bit more of an experiment in terms of like gaintaining. So normally when I'm running a building phase for somebody, we will push their food so they're averaging maybe £2 a month, £3 a month, kind of like going on, and do that for like a 6-month period. But every time like weight stalls out for like a week or two, we'd add more kind of like food in. Whereas for these guys, we're letting that weight stall for say 3 or 4 weeks rather than like the 2 weeks before I'd normally put it on, so that they're gaining a lot slower over kind of like that period of time, so they can stay, I'm saying relatively lean. Like they're not going to be as I always want them to put on at least 1 kilo or 2 from like the bottom end of a diet, so they've got that little bit of body fat as a buffer. But it's going to be interesting to see the level of results for those guys compared to the guys where we've done a slightly more aggressive building phase and then pulled it back, just because obviously they're going to stay in a building phase for longer, which has its own benefits and kind of drawbacks. At the end of the day, they're still in the surplus. So in theory, physiologically, they should still be adding muscle. I just think it's going to be a little bit slower. But the overall time they spend in a surplus may make up for that. And it's, at the end of the day, it all depends on your own ability to be able to tolerate not being in shape. Like for me, I know
it's a very interesting thing to say, bear in mind. Most of what we do is trying to get people in shape. Yeah.
So I know for me, like my missus actually said it to me when I was right at the back end of this prep, because for some reason, as soon as I hit 80 kilos, I start snoring at night.
That's your neck, isn't it?
Probably. And it's just one of those, she said something along the lines of, when I started dieting, obviously I lost a lot of weight very, very quickly. Like my snoring improved, my like cardiovascular fitness improved because I started adding a little bit of cardio and stuff. And I looked a lot better as soon as I hit like the 80 kilos mark. And she said something along the lines of like, I don't like it when you're dieting, but I like the results. So she doesn't like that suddenly I've gone from being able to eat completely what I want, like in an evening, to right, I'm suddenly weighing out all my food again, and kind of like those little things. And essentially she likes me somewhere between like 73 and 76 kilos. So where I'm lean-ish.
I love the way you put it down to a specific number. She likes me.
Yeah, I've been across the very lean to the quite.
Does she like make you stand on a scale and go, oh, you're 74.2. Come on, mate, pick it up.
This is how I like you, when you've got your, yeah, it's basically when my body fat's around that sort of like 12% mark. That's where, because I'm not bony, as she puts it, when I'm in the middle of prep, and I'm not big by my standards, or a bit softer. I like being softer. It's much easier.
Yeah, do you find, I don't know, you probably haven't done it for a while, but if you don't pay attention to your diet, like where do you sit?
It depends on how off the rails kind of like I go. Like I can quite easily, with just eating sensibly, I can sit at mid-70s quite easily. But I find that my mindset when it comes to my own training and nutrition is very much like all or nothing. Like when I go all in on my business, so like rewind the clock like 4 or 5 years when I was working in the gym, I went all in on my business and was just completely focused kind of like on that. So my training was a bit hit and miss. I was training, but I wasn't really training that hard. And I was eating relatively healthily. Like I know what to eat. It's just the portion size has got a bit out of control. And basically I sat at 79, 80 kilos. And that's where I kind of like sit. I find as soon as my body goes over the 80 kilos mark, I start having to push in order to put weight on. Like my natural appetite and stuff will just drop off the edge of a cliff. I just won't want to eat. And I'm having to put food in when I'm not necessarily hungry. So I think I would probably sit somewhere in those high 70s, early 80s sort of mark. But with like a minimal amount of maintenance, and if I was training right, I'd quite easily sit in the mid 70s, I reckon. That's my spectrum coming out.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, the whole eating to gain weight and struggling with it, and an important part of the process of gaining muscle. You kind of talk to, say, someone like me, more of my where I've sat. Like I've never really, apart from maybe one time as a kid, I've never like purposely. No, I guess I have purposely eaten more, but it's never been like, oh, this is so hard. I really need to work at this. Oh, if I don't eat, I'm going to fall apart. I could still miss a meal and still gain like loads of weight. So it's just, interesting. Everyone's very different in how they approach things with their training. But even with diet as well, like, yeah, some people you have to force to eat. Like I had one client who was like, oh, yeah, you just like forget to eat. And it's like, no, never. That doesn't happen. Yeah. Whereas some people you have to force them to eat more. Yeah. But it's interesting that kind of, if you want to gain muscle and you want to get the body you really want, you're going to have to learn how to eat food and eat lots of it.
Well, the amount of guys that I speak to, like on Instagram and stuff, when it's like, what's the main thing like you struggle with? Oh, I struggle building muscle. Okay. Well, what's the biggest problem for you? It's food. Okay. And then you kind of go through and it's like, well, I feel like I eat loads and I just can't put weight on. It's like, how many calories are you eat in a day? Like 2,500. So, okay. So what are you doing to, like, just run me through your day of food? And it's normally, right, I have porridge for breakfast. Okay. I then have like a sandwich at lunchtime. And then I have like a good evening meal. And in my head, I'm going, okay, so there's about 60, 70 grams of protein in there. And well, you've got a sandwich and like just porridge, kind of like a breakfast. There's a number of ways you could get extra kind of like food in there. And it's just, oh yeah, but I just struggle to eat. It's like, I get it if you've never had like a structured sort of like food intake. But like for me, I can quite easily eat 4,000 calories of clean food. And I'm not the biggest guy in the world. But I didn't jump in at 4,000. I start at say 2.5. And then you add in another 200 calories. So it might be an extra 50 grams of carbohydrates over the day. Okay, how am I going to get in? Right. Instead of having 30 grams of porridge, I'm going to have 50 grams of porridge. Instead of like 100 grams of rice, it's like 150. You just slowly increase the portion sizes over time. And I think this is a big mistake that a lot of people make, is they go on to an IFBB Pros thing and a day of eating, or they go to their favorite fitness person's day of eating, and they just try and copy what that person's eating, rather than going, right, well, how do I apply the same things to me? How do I adjust by say 10%? Like people make adjustments and they adjust by like 1,000 calories, 1,500 calories in one go. I had my stepson did it a few months ago. He was bulking, and he just went, right, I'm eating 4,000 calories a day now. What were you eating before? I don't really know. So why have you picked 4,000 calories? Oh, it's because XYZ on TikTok's doing it. Okay. So, but if you were eating 2,500 before and you eat 4,000 now, you're probably going to accumulate a decent amount of body fat. If you're already on 3.5, it's not going to be that big a deal. But it's one of those things where, like, the main bit of advice I can give to people, whether they're trying to lose body fat, whether they're trying to build muscle, is you need to track to establish where you are right now, and then work from there, rather than just picking a diet plan that you found online as your starting point. Your diet of where you are and your training as where you are is your starting point, and then adjust up and down by jumps of like 10-15% either side, rather than just doing this massive change and not knowing, because you might be able to add in 200 calories and that's enough to get things going, but you've just pulled out 1,000 calories and you're now wondering why you're ridiculously hungry like all day. So I think it's just a case of, rather than just being like big swings left and right, it's more small steps.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely, small steps is the way forward, because yeah, steps after steps after steps, you can start running. You got to walk first, right?
How is your drumming going? I've seen you've had a few gigs recently.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, doing that all the time. So I'm doing that every weekend, which is, well, most weekends, yeah, which is good. It's nice. It's been a nice little shift for me. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's yeah, it's just fun. I love it. I think you should do things that make you happy, and that's one of them. So I just want to do
Is
as much
that
as I
just
can.
with, is that one band, or you're just the drummer for a number of ones around you?
Mostly one band. I do the odd thing. Like I do sometimes I play I don't know what you call it, percussion, I guess, for like house DJs. And then the other thing is I occasionally fill in for people, but primarily it's one band, which I do all
Is
the time.
that the only dance?
No, only Daz has had a little fair. We're on a hiatus for a little bit. It was hard to fit it in around my band is audio. We're called Audio City, and then we
Right.
play pretty much every weekend, just around Newcastle, like pubs and stuff like that. But it's just great fun. I get to go Raj on drums, which is really nice. But I had to sort of modify my training a bit for it because I was finding when I was doing sort of like a 5-day split, I was kind of doing push it on my 5th day. I kind of was doing like push and pull. No, that wasn't it. It was pulling legs together, kind of just to make sure I got some for the frequency and for the legs as well as the back. And I was finding come the weekend, like my back was just getting very tired. When you add in all the moving the gear around and setting up and turning it down and driving in late nights, I was finding when I deadlifted the weekend or squatted, it was really having quite a negative impact. In fact, to the point where I kind of stopped all spinal loading for a little bit because it was just painful. And of course, when you're in pain, then that's when it starts leading to pain from day to day starts leading to pain in the gym. So you got to be really careful. But yeah, I had to knock down the head and really think about training. Like I've joined pure gym down the road to use some of the machines. I haven't been for a while, but use like hack squats and leg presses and leg curls and things like that because it just felt like at the moment for my goals, I'm not trying to power lift. So I was like, well, if I want to work my quads, I'll go on a hack squat, which puts, well, not all the time, but in general, normally puts less stress through the back. So I was like, well, I'd rather use that and, get the same stimulus without hurting myself. And then, my training's nothing is rarely goes below 8 reps now, just like
Yeah.
nothing, which is different, which I've done it for quite a while now. I haven't lifted heavy for ages, and although I do miss it, it's nice training. It's fatiguing in a different way. With like heavy sets of 5 and 3, you take a long time in between. You never really get a pump. It's just hard, and it's
Hard on the
mentally
central
fatiguing.
nervous system, isn't
And it
it?
takes a very long time. This is one of the reasons, like, yes, there's a lot of studies out saying you get the similar sort of growth off, say, 10 sets of 3 as you do 3 sets of 10. But I'm like, yeah, that's true. But I was like, you try doing 10 sets of 3 with the right intensity compared to 3 sets of 10. It's hard and it takes a long time. And you're running some other potential risks of, potentially re-injury with higher weights. Time, it takes a long time. You've got to rest more between sets. Whereas if you do your sort of 3 sets of 10, the right time and place, you can get it done a lot quicker with this, maybe a less of a percentage of weight, but you're still getting some good volume work in time under tension, good amount of growth. So it's kind of like, well, I would rather do the 3 sets of 10 now because it just feels better for what I need. And you get that bit of a pump. And I'm like, it's so much, fuck me, like bodybuilding is so, it's not easier. It's just so much more time efficient than powerlifting. Like when you do like say if you're going in for a big set of 5 on deadlifts, before you even do your first set, mate, we're talking half an hour, maybe 40 minutes to get there. Whereas like I'm nearly finished on a sort of the split I'm doing at the moment where it's like, press and arms, back, yeah, pretty much like chest, shoulders, triceps, back and biceps, legs, and then repeat again. It's kind of like you get through it like quite quickly, even with a good amount of
How
work.
long are you spending in the gym now then?
Not
Like
long, like
45 minutes, an hour?
45 minutes to an hour, because it's almost like you think you got to do more, But like I've been really interested. I'm really interested in it all now. Like the idea of junk volume. We're like, when you first start training, like, I've got to completely annihilate my chest, man. Like smash it. It's like, well, how much extra growth are you getting once you've done 4 to 8 sets on your chest? When you start doing more and more and more, and you're like, is it actually quality work? It's like it's probably not. When you can put it towards the end of the week and still get that total set volume in for the week and get but higher rate, better form, and better results. So it's quite nice. Like I only really do at most maybe 5 exercises in a session. But I'm like, if you do it right, that's more than enough. Like you have like
what's his name? John Meadows, the Mountain Dog training system. He's very much about stimulate rather than annihilate. So it's figuring out where your minimum effective volume is and your maximum recoverable volume, just as long as you're staying between those two. Like if you're going above maximum recoverable volume, you're just digging a hole you can't recover from. And if you're going underneath the minimum effective dose, you're not kind of getting enough. But the thing is that space between those two is really wide. Like it's somewhere between like 6 on like a big muscle group like chest over the week. It's somewhere between like 8 and 25 total working sets.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. Some people will need 20. Others can get away with 10, like spread out like over the week. And then I remember going into the gym and doing almost like 20 working sets on like chest day, and then wondering why I couldn't fucking move my arms for like 4 days afterwards. Whereas if you can split that volume up over 2 sessions, do enough to stimulate at the beginning of the week, and then you can get a second session, like you're doubling the total like times of stimulation over the year, aren't you?
Yeah, and you're trying to find out what's right for you. Like one of the things I really shied away from, but for a while when I was powerlifting, I didn't really get sore, and that was kind of that. I think it worked okay in terms of the way I was training. You don't really get sore because you're just trying to be strong. You're not like muscle growth for me it was important, but it wasn't that important. Whereas I'm finding with what do you call it, the more sort of bodybuilding physique based training, like soreness is, I think it's important. I don't think it's everything, but I think it's important you get a little bit of DOMS, even if you're deep into a training cycle, because I think it's not the only indicator, but I think it's a good indicator that you've had a good session. We're not talking like we just said there, so sore that you can't walk for 10 days, but I think you should notice it there. Like one of the biggest things I've always preached is if you can't feel an exercise working, it's probably not working the way you want it to. Yes, it might be different when you're a complete noob and you have no idea what's going on. You haven't built that mind muscle connection. But if it's all you lifted for a few months to a year, you should know what an exercise feels like. So I like clients with that. I know personally for me, if I do a stiff leg deadlift, it absolutely tears my hamstrings to pieces. Like I'm sore for ages. I don't need a lot of weight, that hard arc in your back, really pushing back. I can get a lot out of quite little. We've got other clients who are just like, I think it's the flexibility and the way they're built. They can just do it for days and I never feel it, even if you sort of change things around all the time. So, okay, well, maybe for you, it's a slightly different stance, or maybe just going to leg curls is going to be better to build the job we want to do. Like squats for me smashed my quads, absolutely destroyed them. Whereas like sort of glutes and hips never really felt it. It's because it's not where I'm strong. It's what my body wants to do. So now if I'm like
complete opposite.
Yeah, exactly. So complete opposite. So for you, like getting on a leg press, if you want to grow your quads, is probably a better option. Whereas for me, like squats, I got tons out of squats. Whereas just like if I wanted to build my hips more, I'd either have to go like wide stance and change it, or I'd probably better off doing hip thrust maybe. But yeah, it's just certain people exercises hit them in different ways. Like you can see it with people in the gym. If you want to work your chest and dumbbell, bench press and dumbbell, this is really interesting. I found a lot. People when they're doing their dumbbell pressing, it tends to some people have stronger arms to their chest. So when they're pressing, you can see the weight, they're in really close with the weight. And they kind of, when they're pressing, you can see it staying in the arms, which is great if you want to build big triceps. That's awesome. But if the aim of the session is to build a big chest, you're going to have to sort of take it out, keep that chest right up, pause in the bottom, which a lot of people don't do on their pressing. But if you want to feel your work, if you want to feel your chest work more, pause every single rep. Don't care if it's 10, 5 or 20 reps, just pause it and see the difference. But you can see even when they're pressing, you can just see, you just know they're not kind of getting that in that position there. They're kind of staying in here close and putting it onto their arms, which is okay. But if we want to work a specific muscle group, this is a very new way of training for me to what I used to train like, then you have to do it in a specific way. So you have to kind of change it and leave the weight behind. I think when you get to sort of my age, you still got a bit of an ego, but it's kind of left behind a little bit. You're like, yes, I could probably bench that for 10 reps, but if by the 7th rep it's got to the point where it's not working what I need to, or my other muscle group's taken over, then it's not right. And it's a very, very different way of training, because normally I like, say, for example, we've had this conversation before on deadlifts. Like deadlifts are, amazing. But at the same time, I now don't give anyone a deadlift unless they want to train their deadlift. I'm like, if you want to train your back or your spinal erectors or anything like that, we'll do a stiff leg deadlift, we'll do a snatch grip deadlift, because there's better options. But the thing with deadlifting that makes you really good at it is like having the biomechanical advantage. So using your levers the best way you can, like these guys with the sumo does, incredible lifts. I mean, they're still going to be strong and have massive backs, yes, but more often than not, you see the guys at bodybuilding and trying like that, they're not doing it in that way. They're doing it a way where they can get the most out of the exercise, like build the stretch, reflex, really work specific muscle groups. And if you're working, it gets to a point like, are you working just on your leverages to lift the most amount of weight, or are you working to use a muscle group to lift the most amount of weight?
Yeah. So I've got a funny story for you there about like technique and stuff. So a few months ago, I put up like a little training montage video as a reel or something like that, and I had some guy come on and comment on it, just being like, "Oh, I love what you're talking about in terms of mental health, mate, but you need to work on your form before posting this stuff online."
Yeah.
And I was just like, because it was on my smaller account, I kind of sent like, which exercise is it in particular you're talking about, dude? Because I can't see. I just said, which exercise is it in? Thank you. Which exercise in particular? And he literally just went through every single exercise that's on there. Is basically saying my form is shit on every single one.
You're living rent free in his head, mate.
And I was just like, one thing he said was on the hack squat, I was getting too low. I have never had anybody say to me ever in any training thing that you're going too low in hack squat. So the reason why you go really low in a fucking hack squat is so it hits your quads more. And there was one exercise. So I then sent this training footage across to Jake, who's my coach, and was like, "Is my form off here?" Because this guy's just he just kept kind of going back and forth. It was like, "Nah, mate, like the loads that you're lifting there, your form's probably not going to be 100%, but there's nothing wrong in there. There's no reason for anyone to kind of like critique it." But it was just one of those things where the guy, I think he had like 3 posts, none of them were training himself, and like all he was using Instagram for was to go on and shit on other people who are making content. And it's just like, where's your content then? Where's your lifting videos? Where's your perfect form sort of thing? Like, I don't mind getting my form critiqued by somebody who is in the know and can give me proper constructive criticism, rather than just be like, "You form shit, you shouldn't post videos." It's like, that's not helpful. And how in any world is anybody going to turn around, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you pointed this out. I'm going to change my ways. I'm going to completely reinvent. You know what? Yours was the voice that I needed to hear today." Nobody's going to say that. Like, you're not going to get a positive reaction from somebody going on a public, like, if somebody sent me a DM and was like, "Oh mate, like you might want to work on this," then I might go, "You know what? You're completely right. Thank you for pointing that out. That's something I'll work on." But when you embarrass somebody in public like that, like it's not going to go down well, is it?
You just made me think of, when like dudes send girls dick pics. It's like,
Yeah.
what are you expecting? Like, it's not. You don't do it to get the desired effect. Does a woman ever look and go, "Do you know what? What a great cock. I need to get with this guy." It's the same when they're doing shit like that. They know, like they know they've been. They know they're trolling. They do. It's always the same people that do this, and then when you speak to them in person, they're completely different because like the internet gives them that mask to hide behind, even if it's their own personality, their own profile, whatever. But yeah, I mean, this happens. Like there's what do you call it? There's like these arguments, you shouldn't do full ROM on certain things, or this is actually fine, or we don't actually know all about posture, or that form is different for everyone. It's like, okay, fair enough. But I'm like, sometimes you see the way someone's fucking sat, you're like, that's fucking shit. Like, you can't convince me anyways. Or when someone's doing a proper, like, awful deadlift or row or something like that, I'm like, no, like, you can't tell me that that's very specific and special for them. Like, even stuff like it's been debunked, like when people are doing like sort of rounded back deadlifts. There are some people that round back deadlifts. I'm like, yes, but if you actually look at the way they did it, they start in that position and they finish kind of in the same position. Their lower back's locked in. So although they say the upper back, the upper spine's flexed, it's actually working quite well because it's all locked in. But you can't tell me when someone sort of picks it up and you see that whole like spine. For those I can't see on the listening, like I'm sort of got my hand up and then I'm sort of proper bending it, like you see those cat
like a cat.
It's like
shit.
Yeah, it's like that's fucking bad. Like, you can't tell me that's not you can't tell me that's a good thing or just something dependent on something. It's like, I'm not believing it. I don't care what your medical background is on that. But then I think some people get like a basic idea and they just go overboard with it. But like everyone I know who's either strong, and we're talking like crazy strong or in shape, or bodybuilds or competes, they're not like that. It's just not the way people are. Like, I've got a client I'm training at the moment. He's moved gyms. He's moved across. He's moved to another country actually to train. And it's just like overhearing what they're saying all the time, like he's benching wrong. Like, oh, he's benching wrong. That's not how you bench. You got to bench like this and all that. It's like, yeah, right. He's not a powerlifter. He's not a bodybuilder. He's a powerlifter. He's benching to lift the most amount of weight. He's not benching to stimulate his pecs. You know, he wants to lift. Well, he's done 4 plates, over 4 plates. Like he's not worried about if he's getting any pec growth out of it. He just wants to lift weight. And then you can just see them having this, like, oh, it's just not how you do it. It's not how you do it. It's like, no, obviously the context is different. I'm just like, and these are people that some people that should know better. I mean, I think they're PTs and things, but they don't compete at a high level, so they don't know shit. But it's just fuck. I forget people are like this as well. Like I lift at home most of the time, so you just don't pay attention
So
to it.
what's a question now? You've joined the Pure Gym. What's the worst bit of form like you've seen so far?
You know, it's not been too bad at the moment. Like I think because when I go, it's like after the school run, so it's not peak time. It's like 9:30 in the morning or something. So
Yeah,
you kind of
most of the people that know how to train and that sort of time.
yeah, they've gone, or it's a bit of a downtime, so the gym's not busy really. But like form wise, I mean, I've not seen any horror stories yet. It is sometimes, to me, it is a realization that machines, I think, can be a really good option for a lot of people, because there's some people you see lifting on a machine. I'm like, yeah, it's probably good you're not trying to squat or deadlift or put the effort into doing that, because you would hurt yourself there. As when you just hear like smashing out chest press, I'm like, you're going to be pretty safe. It's going to be fine. Or like a fixed bar path on a lat pull down or something. I'm like, you're going to be okay. I've seen, you know, there's a lot of shallow squats. There's the kind of things where I think in that environment they're the big dog. So, you know, like they're probably the strongest there. But in terms of life, it's like you're literally nothing compared to sort of some of the other people I've seen lifting. So don't quite go on going like that. But I mean, in general, it's fine. You know, there's a lot of people in amazing shape, like just training really hard. You know, you sort of have a look at some of what people are doing, and it's actually pretty good. Like I think there's a lot of information out there now, and I think some people are digesting it well. I think a lot of people still aren't, and doing like mental stuff. But I think the time I go, it's not like your 5-6 p.m. when it's the Wild West. Like it's pretty good. Like people are kind of on form. There's a lot of like, you know, couples training together and stuff like that. There's always a couple where it's like, you know, the boyfriend knows all how to do it. You know, it's a little bit of mansplaining, shall we say? The coach, like, there's still people doing things like, you know, like time sets. Like, yeah, you've got to take like like 3 seconds up and then 3 seconds down, but really like count to like 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, okay, like on a sort of a double wrist. You might be better off just trying to lift as much weight as you can with really good form under control. Who knows? That might work, right? But it's like, no, you have to do this. And I'm really sort of doing that, and you could hear the alarms going off. And that I was a bit like, okay, all right, fair enough.
To their own.
Yeah, I mean, it might be better because you might lower your risk of injury, because, you know, you're very concentrated on counting. Like my shit with time sets, it's like you spend more time worried about counting the time than you do the form. Like, I think a slow eccentric is great, but not for the ways that a lot of people preach it by, you know, for muscle growth and muscle damage. Yes, it causes a lot of damage, but I don't think it necessarily causes more growth than, say, lifting more weight does. Whereas I'm kind of like, if you're slowing it down, you know, a good few seconds because you want to stay in control and keep a good bar path, yeah, fucking great. Like on a squat or a hack squat, I'm really controlled on the way down just because I need to keep that bar path to lower the risk of injury and keep myself in position. But where I think time under tension is brilliant for either newer lifters, or if you're new to exercise, it doesn't half teach you where to go into position. Like, you know, some people that, you know, with their bench and they're like all over the place. I'm like, just slow it down slightly and you get a lot more feedback from when you're training. But then by doing that, it allows you, when you want to not slow it down so much, to lift more weight. So, you know, that's where I'm a fan of time under tension, but in a not necessarily the way people want it to work. But I mean, it's like gym-wise, it's not busy when I go. I can't really think of many things. I mean, there's still people doing 21s, which is, you know, it's cool. 21s are great, but like literally like every session, I'm like, I'm sure if you just did basic, you know, like, I almost shock people sometimes with my training, but I won't change an exercise until it stops working. So like if I'm doing 4 sets of 10 on a dumbbell press and I'm still adding weight every week or an extra rep, I'm not going to change it. Like, there's no point. There is no point. I think there was this thing, you know, like muscle confusion. You got to change your exercise every 3 to 4 weeks. It's like, well, why do you have to do that? Because you get used to it. It's like, well, no, like if you're still adding reps, if anything, it's more efficient for your body because you know how that exercise feels. Your body knows it gets, like, obviously it doesn't Yeah, it doesn't know the difference between if you're pushing a dumbbell or a barbell. But at the same time, there's some kind of get in there like, oh, yep, I know this bench press. This is what I'm working on. You just run it for as long as you can. Like,
Yeah,
fuck, I think I ran deadlift, like stiff leg deadlift for like 6 months or something, just because it was still progressing. So I was like, I don't want to change it. Whereas I've had other things where I'm like, right, I'm going to change this now because either my RPE is going off the scale, or, when you really start, yes, you did get that extra rep, but you're really like, dropping a bollock to get it. So
yeah,
that's when you might want to change things or slightly different. I was like, we're talking very small like changes. Like I'll always keep some variation of. Now I don't really flat barbell press that much now. Like it's mostly one that I've really liked doing is the bow bar, because I don't have so I have a camber bar, but I don't have one of those like bench camber bars. I've just got a bow bar, and just by sort of taking that extra couple of inches when you're pressing on the pause, it feels like it's really hitting my chest a lot harder. So I've been
yeah.
using that, which has been nice.
So when I went to the Arnold this year as an athlete, so I was working
Cool.
with the Arctic Berg crew, and so there was two of the athletes there. So it was me and then Bex, who's a bikini girl, and she was in prep. She's about 2 weeks out. So on the Saturday night, we went and trained at the Pure Gym in Birmingham, and that was an experience. It was hilarious though, because obviously she's fucking off her tits on pre-workout and pump, like all the veins like popping out everywhere, doing curls and doing things like doing the weights that some of these guys were in there doing, because obviously she's pretty strong for a bikini girl actually. And like you just saw this, she was doing bicep curls, and you can see all like the veins and stuff in her biceps and forearms and everything popping out. And this guy's like sat right next to her using the exact same weight of dumbbell. And he's just like looking down at his forearms and like tapping on them, being like, where the fuck are my veins? Like, how is this girl here in better shape and stronger than I am? It was really quite basic. And she was the only white person in there as well. So obviously I'm mixed race, and it was just full of like Asian lads because of whatever area in Birmingham we were. So she stuck out like a sore thumb, and then she was jacked because obviously she was like 3 weeks out, which I found hilarious because I was just people watching because I was training, but it wasn't that
I know you mean.
important.
I know what you mean.
But for her, because obviously she was like 3 weeks out, she couldn't skip a session. But that being on a stand at the Arnold was really fun. If you ever get the opportunity to do it, like do it. It's so much more fun because like you can wander around like at the end, and at like 5 p.m. on the Sunday, like stuff's already discounted for the festival anyway. But like I was picking up like a bag of protein powder for like £6, whereas it would have cost me 30 quid at the beginning of the thing. I picked up like 6 months supplies of like my health supplements because everything was ridiculously discounted.
Do you remember when
It costs more money for them to ship it back.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Do you remember someone found there was like a glitch on my protein? Someone shared a code, and then I think someone said you could double it up with the sale, and I think it was like some kind of glitch on the site. So you basically ended up getting like it was like 75% off or even more. It was even cheaper than before, like the price of whey went through the roof. It was like back when we were kids, that kind of price. And I just dropped I think I dropped like 200 quid on protein. I was like, well, I've saved myself a ton of cash because I'm
protein keeps ages.
I'm going to use it, and like it's insanely cheap. Yeah, I love it when you use those mega stack deals, but it's just like, yeah, it is. Like I'm now of the opinion I wouldn't ever buy protein full price. Like fuck that. But it's good. You got loads of good stuff from there. Well, yeah, it's always good to get a good haul, isn't it? Yeah.
It's one of those now because obviously the wholesale price of whey skyrocketed, but it has actually come back down now. But all the companies' customers now are used to paying that higher price, so they're just keeping the prices there rather than bringing them down. Until basically this cost of living thing bites a bit more, and then they've got to start competing on price again. But yeah, like supplements and stuff wise, I've cut right back on everything. That I take a multivitamin, some magnesium, whey protein, and then a pre-workout, and that's it. I used to be spending like over 100 quid a month on supplements, and I've cut that right down now, just because you don't really need them.
Do you know what, mate? I've dropped my protein down a ton. like a shit ton. I don't count it anymore. But like right down, I probably get like maybe like 150 a day or something like that. Like really just
Yeah.
stripped it like right back because I was just like, I'm not competing. I was like, I don't need this. Like you just you it's good, but I was like, this is expensive. Like, and I don't,
Yeah.
especially, steak. I don't know if you've seen recently the cost of beef and steak in the supermarkets is insane. Like it's gone
Yeah.
up in like
Cost of
huge
all
amounts.
meat's gone up.
Yeah, everything. I now don't buy chicken breasts. I just eat chicken thighs because I was like, fuck paying that all the time. I was like, why am I doing this? Like they're tastier and I know they're not as lean, but I was like, as long as I keep my calories in check, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I know it's different for you because you're competing and every gram is important. But like for most people, I'm just like you have to choose different food options and just think outside the box. Like I hate that we're in this situation that we're in. I really do. But it has sort of opened my eyes up to okay, well maybe I don't need to be smashing all this food in all the time.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I think because the media's ramming it down everyone's throats, everyone's looking at their budgets right now and going, well, what is a necessity and what and where can I kind of like save money?
Great time to be a PT, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So it's one of those I've had to kind of like change the sort of people that I'm marketing to. I'm spending a lot more time on like LinkedIn now and going for more management level people and focusing
Yeah,
more
it's
on
just it's unfortunate,
like
isn't it? Like, I
time
mean,
stuff.
I guess it's not for we have to adapt, but you just like people are now instead of dropping money on a PT, are worried about can I turn the fucking heating on? You're like,
Yeah.
what? Like, it's terrifying. It's
Shouldn't
horrible.
be like that in a first world
Nah,
country.
yeah, it's quite upsetting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know all of it. We've all got we've had things, and we won't get too deep onto it on the podcast, I guess. But
No,
it's not good.
no.
It's not fun. But
I think
I
the
feel
next,
very thankful for having a home gym and buying it before COVID. Jesus,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
You don't. Yeah.
definitely. And as you said, like I've seen a lot of people that bought home gyms and then have been selling them like now because they're going back to a gym and stuff. But like for me, I've kept my home gym, even though I'm only using it once a week at the moment,
Mm,
so that if shit did hit the fan and I had to cut back on all my
mm.
expenses, like one of the things I could get rid of is my gym membership
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
very easily because I can still train at home. I've got all the equipment there. And if I tried to sell it now, I wouldn't get the money back for what I paid for it.
I had some plates up for sale, mate, and they took a long time to shift. I wanted £2 a kilo for some. What were they? The barbell standard. Like they're not deep dish, but they've got a fairly decent lip on them. The black ones off. Got them off Extreme Fitness, and like brand new, mate. But they're still like 360, 70 a kilo.
Yeah.
But like to sell them, I had to drop the price slightly. Well, I sold slightly because I sold 3 pairs, but like it took a long while. Whereas I think like in COVID, like post COVID, they would have like flown out the doors. I just think people aren't dropping money like they used to. Like we've had this in the gigging as well. We've lost a few gigs because it's like pubs are just like I'm not out have paying a few £100 for a band when there's 4 people in the pub, and I'm like you can't argue. You're like yeah, fair enough. It's a weird time, mate.
Well, it's well, I think what's happened is post COVID created a mini boom in a lot of industries. And
Yeah.
then what's happened is the world's kind of like opened back up. People had
Mm,
loads of money saved because they were getting 80% of their wages,
mm,
but they weren't spending it
mm,
because nothing was open. So they
mm,
then had all this money to spend. So they've spent it. It's then driven the prices and everything up because demand has shot up. And now everything's now starting to chill out and it's almost recalibrating itself. It doesn't help that Putin decided to
mm.
do what he's done. So that's just shot inflation kind of up and everything. But we are essentially feeling the after effects of a major kind of like shutdown, then everything
Mm,
opening up, and it's just the system kind of almost like rebalancing itself. But I've
mm,
seen dozens, if not, I've I've seen dozens of people I saw had become online coaches just completely leave the industry over the last kind of like 6 months or so, just because it is getting more challenging to be able to coach because people it is a luxury item at the end of the day. It's not something that everybody who's still there or even frozen.
Recording in progress.
Oh, we're back. I believe. He's in. Yeah, my internet just cut off for some reason.
I see. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are leaving the fitness industry right now, which just means that people that are able to stick around, the ones that you've seen weather this storm, are good at what they do, or else they wouldn't have been able to weather this storm. The only people that are going to be around for the next few years are the ones that actually get results and actually care about the clients that they're looking after. So those clients are kind of like stuck around.
Yeah, it's weird place. Yeah, I guess at the moment it's like I own a home and I can pay bills. I'm very, very lucky. Yeah. What's
Cool.
that? Fucking bank owns most of it. Yeah. But,
I think that's probably a good place to leave it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, mate, good to catch up, and then we'll get back on it, and we'll line up some more guests, get some more topics for discussion. I've got loads of things to go over the next few weeks. But yeah, good stuff.
Awesome. So me and Dan are committing to putting out probably weekly episodes. If we ever are missing some, then we will kind of like let you guys know. But we've missed these little catch-ups, and it's been great to catch up with you, dude, and looking forward to getting some more guests and covering some more topics in depth. So where can the guys find you on social media if they want to learn some more about your coaching ethos?
Bubbles and Beans, and then Dan Frazier on Facebook.
Perfect. And for myself,
and you, mate?
The dadbod_coach across everything. So that's Instagram, YouTube, everything like that. So been great to have you, dude, and I will speak to you next week.
Take care, mate. Bye.